So the global theme this month is tradition. Our speaker this morning is Chantal Chagnon. Chantal is a Cree Ojibwe Métis singer, drummer, artist, storyteller, actor, educator, workshop facilitator, social justice advocate, and activist with roots in Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. She shares traditional Indigenous arts, culture, history, and teachings in classrooms from preschool through university, at conferences, conventions, galas, community gatherings, and social justice events. Chantal has performed at the National Music Center, Jubilee Auditorium, Jack Singer Concert Hall, Saddle Dome, and other showcases showcasing traditional, contemporary, and modern music, and now at the Treehouse in C-Space. Chantal aims to entertain, engage, enlighten, educate, inspire, empower, and create bridges of opportunity for cooperation, understanding, and healing for our past and future generations. So please help me welcome Chantal Chagnon.
Pansei Oki Bozu, hello. My name is Chantal Chagnon, and I always like to start by acknowledging the land upon which we stand, because if you don't know where you are, then how do you know where you're going? This is the traditional territory of the Treaty 7 people, the home of the Nitstapi, or the Blackfoot, from Siksika, Kainai, and Pagani, the Sarsi Dene, or the Beaver people, from Tsutsina, and the Stoney Nakoda from Morley, which includes Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. We're also walking in the footsteps of Métis Region 3, which is why I proudly wear my Métis sash as that bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous culture. When we acknowledge the land, we're acknowledging far more than that. We're acknowledging that hidden history, those traditions that have been steeped into this land for thousands upon thousands of generations. We're honoring the families that have kept those traditions alive and continue to do so to this day. We're honoring the fact that we still pick our traditional medicines in this territory. I still pick my traditional medicines here. We still have our traditional ceremonies here that have been practiced for thousands of generations. We still have that community building. This area is known as Mokinstis. It was a gathering place where bodies of water would come together. Mokinstis actually means elbow in Blackfoot, and it's where the Elbow River and the Bow River would meet, and it would bring everyone together for trade. And if anybody's ever been to a powwow, you'll understand it's like an awesome dance party. But not only is it super fun, it was our way to show our tradition, to talk about our family, to share our regalia, to share these beautiful parts of our traditional selves. But also nobody wants to marry your cousin, so you'd go there to meet people, which was great. But those traditions still continue to this day. And when I go in schools and I talk about tradition, kids think that it's something from so long ago, but it's right now. It's continuing to happen. Just to welcome everyone this morning, I would like to share with you, this is the traditional Cree welcome song. Normally when we sing songs, we sing in rounds of 4 to honor the 4 directions of the medicine wheel. But this song is a little different. We sing it in rounds of 3 to keep the circle open and welcoming so everyone completes the circle today. Because in a circle, we are all connected. There's no beginning. There's no end. No one is greater or less than anyone else in that circle, just like in the hoop of life. And it teaches us that our voices are important. Our traditions are important. Everyone has that unique self that they have to share with the community around them, because that's what makes our community resilient. If everybody was exactly the same, the world would be incredibly boring. So it teaches us to honor those voices, those differences, and even if we have disagreements, that's okay, because that's what brings balance into the world. This song is very special. It was brought forth by the Nakahau family from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, and it was passed down through many generations, which shows the resiliency of our people, because for a long time it was illegal for us to speak our languages, for us to share our stories, for us to share our traditions, practice our culture, even be who we were. And so the fact that this has remained shows how resilient it can be, and the fact that it's shared so openly to bring everyone into the circle shows how resilient our community can be as we come together. So this song doesn't just mean welcome, miasin, it also means beautiful. Miasin, miasin, hasemina, hasemina, epetakote, niwagomagan. Hota, homa, kitaskino, miasin, miasin, hasemina, hasemina, epetakote, niwagomagan. Hota, homa, kitaskino, miasin, miasin, hasemina, hasemina, epetakote, niwagomagan. Hota, homa, kitaskino. Hi, welcome to the circle today, everyone. So I've been thinking about the word tradition and how we have old traditions, which is mostly what people think about, that antiquated time, maybe a time of ritual, maybe a time that we can carry forward of our ancestors. But also, it's about creating new traditions with our families, with our friends. I was thinking a lot about this season. So we don't technically celebrate Christmas in my house, but we celebrate solstice in my house. It's about that connection to the earth. It's about that connection of renewal. And the best thing to do in our house is, because we still have Christmas gifts, we still give those things, but we have a tradition of burning a Yule log or a solstice log where we pray for the things that we want for the next year ahead. And this is a very common practice in Celtic tradition, but it was also a very common practice in Indigenous Cree tradition. And so when we write those things, we're very mindful, we're very focused on the things that we want to learn and how we want to grow for the year ahead. My kids get really excited. They always, well, my little guy always is like, and I want a pony, and I want a horse, and I want every game in the universe, because that's just who he is. And my eldest son is like, I don't want to fail class. University is hard. So, but I'm always thinking, how do I want to live my best life? How do I want to live my most creative life moving forward this next year? And it gives us a time to reflect. And it's, I think, important. Tradition is about reflection. It's about honoring our connection to our past, but also our future moving forward. One of the traditions that we have every year is new pajamas, because when you're opening presents on Christmas morning or solstice morning, you don't want to look trashy in your pictures. So, so new pajamas, that's a tradition in my house. And I remember growing up, before I lost my father, we had a tradition, a very French tradition, of waking up just after midnight to open our gifts. And when my father passed, that tradition passed with him. And I think it's important to know that if a tradition is going to pass with someone, then maybe we need to reinvigorate that and bring it back. Because we're acknowledging those people that we've lost when we uphold those traditions. With Indigenous culture, it's been hard to hang on to our traditions. There's been so many times where we've faced incredible adversity to be able to even claim who we were as Indigenous people. We had to hide from who we were. And to actually be able to see this time of reconciliation and of truth, where our traditions are coming back full force, it's been inspiring and it's been beautiful. But it's also been difficult. Because in our family, It was hard to really reclaim our culture. My kukum, my grandmother, she went to residential school. And because of that, she didn't learn how to become a parent. She didn't learn unconditional love, and all she really learned was about how to shame herself for being Indigenous. And this included stopping any of those traditions that were carried forward in our family. She didn't smudge, she didn't drum, she didn't sing, she didn't carry any of those teachings moving forward. But all she carried forward was hurt from the residential school. And that is a tradition nobody wants to uphold. That in turn got passed down to my mom. So my mom never learned how to be a parent. She never learned unconditional love. She didn't learn that abuse was not okay, because this is something that was ingrained in her through the residential school system. And then, in turn, that was passed to me. And I knew that was something I needed to break with my own children. And so I broke that cycle of abuse by reclaiming my traditions, reclaiming my culture, reclaiming my heritage and my songs and my stories. Smudging every day became a ritual for me. That's a tradition that's been around for thousands of years. And when we did this, I was able to acknowledge this and instill this pride of who we were in my children. My kids are so proud of who they are. My eldest son, who's in university, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but he has been this amazing force where he's been stepping into roles and helping elders and working with programs and really honoring who he is as an Indigenous person. And it was beautiful and inspiring to see that, because he's the one who changed my life and made me create these traditions and reclaim these traditions. And my little guy, he's now continuing the tradition of sharing our songs and sharing our stories. He's become quite the little storyteller, and not just when he's telling me, no, I haven't been playing video games because I'm grounded. But it's beautiful to see how they can take this on and really honor our past. And also, whenever we share our traditional knowledge, it shares so much about who we are. It's that vulnerability of culture. It's that vulnerability of connection. It's honoring that we're all Indigenous to somewhere, and all of our teachings come from Mother Earth. So when we smudge, it's our way of cleansing. What a smudge is, I always compare it, you have a shower or a bath to clean your body, you smudge to clean your spirit. So a smudge is burning traditional herbs. Usually we use sage or sweetgrass to cleanse our body in a good way, and to cleanse our mind, and to really balance us and bring us back to a center, to honor who we are, and to get rid of any of the negative energy that we might be carrying. But whenever our traditions are called into question, science usually proves them, things that we've done for thousands of years, which makes me look smarter, which is great. So smudging, there was a study done out of a university, I believe it was the University of Lethbridge, but don't quote me on that, trying to figure out why we smudge. And so they tested the air quality of a room before and after a smudge. And they found that smudging eliminated airborne toxins, including viruses, bacteria, and fungus from the air, which is pretty amazing. But not only that, it actually pH balanced the air in the room. So it made it healthier and better to breathe. Things that we've done for thousands of years, proven by science? Yes, please. But even our traditional medicines, the way that we've harvested our medicines for thousands of generations, there's so much truth in that. The way that we honor and respect the earth, there's so much beauty in that. And when we share those teachings, we're actually bringing back the spirit of treaty. When we signed the treaties, it wasn't about giving away anything, but it was about unifying people. It was about coming together and sharing our traditions, sharing our stories, sharing our connection to the land, but most of all, sharing our connection to each other. Knowing that in the circle, we're all equal. We all have something beautiful to contribute. We all have something beautiful to learn from each other and to share together and to grow together. And this has been something that we've known for thousands of generations. And I think everyone has in their heart. In bringing those traditions back into light, where we can actually create traditions together. I think this is an invaluable tool for unifying our community, for healing all of those mistakes in our past, so that we can actually move forward in a good way together on this path. When we share our traditional teachings, they have so much truth in them. Even when we talk about something simple like the bear. The bear teaches us so much about ourselves. It teaches us about the strength to be ourselves, to stand up for what's right in our community, the courage to stand up for what's right in our community. The bear exemplifies this. And using a tool like understanding an animal for that guidance that we need to better ourselves, I think is a brilliant tradition and a beautiful way of being. The bear also teaches us to be mindful. My son loves the bear song because it teaches him how to actually think things through, to honor everything and everyone around him in the community. The bear teaches us to pay attention because the bear always pays attention. The bear always knows if there's something off in our community. The bears have been actually eating the pine beetles off the trees out west, ripping and clawing and chewing those pods of pine beetles off because they know that they're damaging the trees. And the bear's job is to keep things in balance. I'm not sure if anybody remembers, but 6 years ago, there was a whole bunch of wolves that were just dropped in the middle of Banff National Park. And they were devastating the population of game animals. So the elk and the moose and the deer and the bighorn sheep were just plummeting. They were taking a bite out of it. Sorry, that was a pun. But the bear saw this happening, and the bear knew that it had to do something. So the bear actually, instead of eating those game animals like it normally would, began to eat the wolves. Surprisingly enough, only the wolves that didn't belong there, because the bear knew that if it made that hard decision this year, it would protect those other animals for future generations, for future years to come. And I think what we learn from the bear is about how to be mindful, how to pay attention. I always tell kids, the bear teaches us to do our chores, right? Because he does. The bear always knows that if it makes better decisions for this generation, it'll continue. Bear doesn't think in voting cycles. It thinks in future generations. And I think that's something that we really need to install, because that's where tradition comes from. You can start a tradition, but if you continue it, that's really what creates that tradition. And it's about unifying and moving forward in a good way. My little guy, actually my big guy too, whenever we make decisions for the household, we say, okay, what would the bear do? Not tear up the place and eat everything, but what would the bear do? How would it make decisions to benefit the household if we were in the forest? And so my little guy has to think and be really mindful about what he's going to do, and he usually does his chores after I say that. But we even think in terms of generations, because I think it's more important to think in terms of generations, because it's not just about us in this moment. It's bigger than that. In Ojibwe culture and Cree culture, actually a lot of Indigenous cultures think in terms of generations. So whenever we make decisions, we think 7 generations behind. What are my ancestors, what did they do when they were thinking about this moment? What kind of sacrifices did they make to get me here? Am I honoring the teachings and the legacy that they had left for me? And then we think 7 generations forward. What am I doing to leave a better world for my future generations? Am I honoring that legacy? Am I creating something for them? Am I leaving a world that's something to be proud of? Or am I leaving a mess for them to clean up? So when we think in terms of that, we make way better decisions, because it's not just about us. It's about that past and honoring it. It's about that future and that hope. And that is a huge tradition. I think politicians need to think in terms of generations, because then we're going to actually see the changes that we want to happen on a monumental scale. Because it's not just about us in this moment. It's not just about who's going to get voted in, 4 years from now. But it's how are we going to create that lasting legacy for our future generations. It's not about casting blame or taking responsibility. It's about honoring the fact that this isn't our world. This is our children's world. This is our grandchildren's world and our great-grandchildren's world. This will continue on if we let it. So how do we create and instill those traditions to respect those future generations? Because they're going to be someone's future generations. But also, how do we honor the past? Because in the past, those traditions teach us so much about who we are. They teach us about humility, about strength, about honoring each other in that circle. Something so simple and so basic that we learn as children. Why do we lose it as we become adults? So how do we maintain it? I think is so important. And it's about acknowledging that past, because it's part of us. You can't run away from it. You might have had a very hard past. Your family might have had a very hard way, but you have to think about what made you strong, what made you resilient, what led you to the person that you are today, and how can you make those changes to heal from the past so that you can honor those future generations moving forward. I'm very blessed to be able to share a lot of stories that put those things into perspective. Share stories about traditional animals or traditional fairy tales, or even creation stories that teach us so much about ourselves. With Indigenous stories, they're a little different because there's not a moral to the story. And it's like, the moral of the story is da 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 da. But you can hear the same story 100 times. And every time you hear it, you're going to hear something different in it. You're going to learn something different from it. And it'll help you grow and shape and mold to the world around you. It'll help you understand and heal in a good way moving forward. But I think it's about creativity. It's about bringing that creative aspect of understanding to the world around you. That's our responsibility for our future generations. It's to really create that understanding and to honor them in a good way and also honor our past. I know that my kukum, my grandmother, she had a really hard time with me sharing my traditional stories and sharing my traditional drumming and singing. She was always telling me, you look white, just pretend you're white, just stop doing this. And I said, no, I can't do that because this is part of me. I had a very unhealthy lifestyle until I reclaimed who I was. And I thought it was really important to do that for my children. And then as I continued to drum and sing and share those traditions and go to ceremonies, I started to feel more resilient and beautiful as part of who I was. And my kids were thriving because of that reclamation of our culture and our history and our traditions. And then slowly but surely, my kukum started to warm up to it. As soon as I sang on stage with Tom Jackson, she stood up and she was like, that's my granddaughter, we're Cree, I'm so proud to be Indigenous. And it was amazing because she wouldn't have said that, 10, 15, 20 years ago, or maybe she would never have said that. But I think it's our future generations that sometimes can create those new traditions or reclaim those traditions and lead us in the path that we need. And it's so important to do that. I'm very blessed that I can do it through song and through storytelling. But these are universal teachings that everyone needs to know. And if you can learn it through a song, wonderful. If you can learn it through a story, fantastic. If you can learn it just through a conversation and connection, even better. But I think that's part and parcel of activism. So why I'm an activist is so that I can maintain those traditions. So I can stand up for what's right in our community. And so I can honor each other's voices in those communities. We have a huge problem with murdered and missing Indigenous women and Indigenous people in this country, where we have to honor those families that have lost so much. But in spite of all of this loss, they have never lost their traditions. They've never lost that connection that they have to the land and to each other. This is why our communities are so resilient and strong, is because we come together at a time of loss to honor each other and support each other in that circle, in that community. Because that's really what can make everyone thrive. In our culture, we always say, all my relations. And it's because we're all related. We're all related to each other in this circle, in this hoop of life. All of the plants and the animals are also our relations, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Without each other, we wouldn't be here. So it teaches us to honor all of our connections and step outside, breathe in the air, honor the birds that are flying, even the magpies that harass you. You need to really honor everything around you, because that is really where we can create those traditions and maintain the ones that are almost lost. And I think that's really what makes our world beautiful. Maybe connecting over our own traditions. So when I teach in schools, I teach a whole variety of kids. When I teach elders, I teach a variety of elders. And to share those stories and then have other kids from other cultures or other elders from other cultures share how they related to those stories through some of their traditions. It's remarkable just how similar we are and how connected we are. And it's just those simple truths that really can unite us. And so it's not about division, it's about coming together. So I'd like to share a song, actually. So I talked about the bear, but the bear also teaches us a little bit about timing and about being mindful, because the bear always knows what's up. The bear always knows what to eat and when to eat it. And we would actually watch the bear to know what to eat and when to eat it. Actually, there was a lake, I believe it was in BC. I think it was Williams Lake, I might be wrong. But last year, all the bears stopped eating the fish. And so the First Nations people who saw this happening were like, bears aren't eating the fish, we're not going to eat the fish. But other people were like, oh no, it's fine, we're just going to eat the fish anyway. And then they got really sick because there was a microorganism in the fish. So the bear knew what was up, so they didn't eat it. And First Nations people watched the bear, so they're like, we're not going to eat it either. And so it teaches us that even though the bear is just an animal, it teaches us so much about the environment around us. If the bear's not eating a lot of berries one year and switching to eat a lot more roots, might be something wrong with the berries, or it just needs a year to replenish itself. And the bear always knows when to go to sleep and when to wake up. We would always watch the bear to know how long the winter was going to be, because if he was getting super chubby, we knew it was going to be a long, cold winter, so we'd either travel down south or we'd get prepped for a really crummy winter. But if he was kind of lean, we knew it wasn't going to be too bad of a winter, so it was going to be okay. I don't know why we have the tradition of Groundhog Day. It's useless. We should have Bear Day. Who's with me? And then it would be more of a sport, because we'd get somebody who can run really fast to go into the bear den and poke the bear. If the bear does not wake up, 6 more weeks of winter. If the bear does wake up, run, because spring is coming. So this is the bear song, and when I heard it, again, because my great-grandfather used to share songs and stories with me all the time, he used to tell me that I had my great-grandmother's eyes, and that was such a blessing. And he had given me a song when I was really, really young, and it just kind of kept resurfacing in my life, which is my nickname is Storm Song or Storm Shadow Song, and he called me She Who Dances and Sings with Spirits in a Storm. Because whenever there was a storm, I was always out running and dancing and playing in the rain and the thunder and the lightning, which would make my mom really nervous because we lived in Castle Downs in Edmonton for a while, and there was those huge power lines that like ran across the field, and as soon as there was a lightning storm, I was there, and she's like, "You're gonna die!" And I'm like, "No," but that was my tradition, and I loved it. But it was that connection that I had to my spirit, and it just drove me in that direction. It pushed me in that direction. And it was a way to honor my connection to everything around me, that natural world. And it still continued. That nickname has kind of still followed me. That spirit name has still followed me. My connection to the storm, my connection to chaos at times, but my connection to sharing my music and my dancing. Well, not dancing anymore, my hip's kind of screwed, but that's another story for another time. But it's really about how we honor those traditions and uphold our names. Because in our culture, our name can carry so much weight. And even when we look at how we deal with the world, our name has a lot to do with it. Language has a lot to do with that. And so we honor that. So the bear song, when I had heard it again, I knew it. And there's been so many songs that I'll go into ceremony, and even though I don't know the song, I know the song. You can feel it in my heart. You can feel it in that drum beat. I can feel it in that connection, and the words just come through me. And it's been the same way with a lot of my traditional teachings. I'm a Two-Spirit woman, and so a lot of our teachings were lost, but all of a sudden they're starting to pour out of me. And the first time I made a drum, I knew how to make drums. It was just the strangest thing. My mom was going to teach the workshop, but I ended up teaching the workshop. And all of the teachings behind the hides and the medicines, everything just started pouring out of me. And I was worried about that. So I'm like, oh, I should go probably talk to an elder. So after all of these teachings would go, I'd go and consult an elder, and they're like, no, that's legit. You're right. I haven't heard that teaching since my grandfather. So continue, keep going on your path. And I think the less that we start, the less that we doubt ourselves, and the more that we start to reclaim who we are and those traditions that just pour through us and the way that we relate to the world, I think that's when we're going to actually see those changes in the world around us. So the bear song teaches us that. It teaches us to be strong in who we are, stand strong, but also honor everyone else's voice in that circle, because that's what the bear does. It knows that it's not greater or less than anyone else. It knows that it's just as important as that single blade of grass or that really obnoxious chipmunk. It knows that even though it's kind of high up on the food chain, that it balances things. And I think that's something that we need to realize, that we're all part of a greater whole. No one is less than or greater than anyone else. And that's part of how we honor each other in that circle. So this is the Ojibwe bear song, which is my son's favorite song. So whenever he hears it, he comes running, "This is my favorite song!" So I always think of him when I sing it.